Hey, what is up, Bayside students, world, people listening from all around? I mean, maybe we'll go worldwide. I don't know.
Worldwide.
But it's me, Jared, with my boy.
Your boy. I'm Karston Williams. What's up, y'all?
And today we are talking about church relationships. And as a youth pastor, and I've been doing this for a little bit now, man, there's one thing I've learned is you can't do this alone.
Mm-hmm.
And so we brought in the legend from around this area. This is the connector of connectors. Who do we got today, Karston?
We got Rones. In Rones, you do church relationships at Jessup University in this area. How long you been doing that? How long did you do youth ministry for? And what is church relationships?
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey guys, thanks for having me. This is really fun. It's an honor to be here. So thank you guys. So church relationships is exactly what it sounds like. It's relationships with churches. And, you know, in what I do at Jessup, so the church relations office, you know, church relationships with a Christian school or for a Christian school is very crucial, because if we don't have partnerships with churches and local churches, then why are we even doing what we're doing?
Absolutely.
If we're going to say that, you know, we want to see more ministry students, or we want to pump out more pastors or church planters and missionaries, and we're not connecting with the church, which is, I think, God's plan A to redeem the world, I think we might be missing the mark with that as a Christian organization. So kind of what I do in this office is, well, what's really cool about being at Jessup is it's a non-denominational school. And what that basically means in church lingo is I'm a safe space. You know, it's like if we wanted to get pastors together, it's not like, well,
this denomination or that's not.
Yeah, we're going to go to this church and they believe this. And, you know, none of that exists when you meet at a neutral location. So what I get to do is really my job consists of helping resource the church.
Yeah.
And I think what resource means to me is developing these relationships, just to meet with a pastor and just to ask, like, how's it going?
Absolutely.
I think that goes a long way. And that is a ministry. In
100%.
So, you know, we need to pray for our people in ministry, our youth pastors, because there's a lot of burnt out youth pastors and hurt pastors out there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we do, helping pastors meet other pastors, even with our networks and things like that, which I love you guys do. And, you know, even the fact that I'm here right now, I think is a result of relationships.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I've been doing that for about 2 years now. And, I've been in youth ministry. And how do you define that? How long have you been in youth ministry? Well, I got my undergrad in youth ministry, and I studied under Les Christie.
Oh, the legend. Karston just learned that.
It's the guru, the games guru. And so, if you know Les Christie, you're old.
Yeah.
Him and Tick Long, apparently.
Yeah. Hey, name dropping over there.
I just learned who Tick Long is as well. So, yeah.
And so I think we're cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
Because we have like this context of youth ministry. Of
these guys.
I remember when it was the Wild Wild West. You know, anything you go, we see.
I remember when we used to electrocute kids in the 90s, you know?
What's a permission slurp?
Yeah. I mean, actually, when you think of the games and the stuff that youth ministry did in the 90s, like I told, we had a game one and I talked about chugging milk, right? That was my initiation game to high school ministry. Is they had freshman boys who could chug a gallon of milk the fastest. Well, if you guys don't know this, you can't. It's physically impossible to chug a gallon of whole milk. I think the percentage is as it gets lower, as it gets more possible. And I just yacked everywhere. I finished it first, but I was throwing up cheese, and you just can't do that.
Milk on the floor games.
Absolutely, yeah. It's old. We had to play it outside. I'm like, why are you playing a game outside? And so, but yeah.
Need a permission slip for everything nowadays.
I know it's rough.
Oh, the pumpkin patch.
But
sign something.
So youth ministry, I've been in vocational youth ministry for 6+ years. You know, if you've been in the game for 5 years or longer, man, you are a veteran.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And there's folks out there who have been in youth ministry for 20 years.
Dogs.
And I'm just like, good job. Well done.
Absolutely. When I think of like Doug Fields, we've had an opportunity to cross paths a few times now.
Yeah.
Here at Bayside, and even like I think of Kurt. What's his name? Johnson down at Saddleback.
Kurt Johnston.
Yeah. legend. The dude's been doing it forever. Dude, I remember when I first got into youth ministry, I was buying his VHSs.
That's
like
easy.
Like his sermon VHSs to show at youth group. And the dude's a legend. Like we got to get him on here too, but just studs. And so I think like everything you're saying is so true. And I think the importance is, man, you can't do youth ministry alone.
Yeah,
and I think
not.
one thing I love, and a mutual friend of ours, Ryan, told me this. He's like churches, it's like ice cream flavors, right? Like, it's like there's different flavors of different types of churches, denominations, different things like that. But for the majority, if it's a part of the ice cream parlor, and that's what Jessup, I think, does, and what you do with your church relations is you're like, hey, different ice creams, whether you're Creekside, whether you're Bridgeway, Bayside, whatever it is around here. I'm probably missing a ton that come to our little group. And we're going to give you free food. We're going to have discussion. We're going to pray for each other. We're going through stuff because, man, youth ministry can be isolating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we were talking about this a little bit before, but I remember like I started off at a well-sized church, and it was denominationally based. I went to Jessup, was our rival in college, so it's always tough for me.
Come on.
Yeah, go Red Hawks, Simpson University. Shout out Phil Vaughn. Even though CMA. Oh yeah,
Here we
I
go.
didn't realize we both got CMA guys up here.
All right.
Fourfold Gospel. But I remember like I was so indoctrinated in that CMA culture where I kind of had that natural community built into it. And when you're studying youth ministry, you got youth men majors with you. So you have that. And then I went to this church and there was a few of us on staff and we would go to these youth things. But like, I remember being kind of alone. And then I remember I moved and I was trying to help plant a church in this town. And there was some bad blood because of some situations. And I just felt alone. Like I honestly, I made one friend actually with like the church that we had bad blood with, that we weren't allowed to do things together, but we just ate sandwiches at Ike's like once a week and just talked. But it was like, I felt alone, like, because youth ministry is a very unique job.
It is.
And unless you've been a youth pastor, not like a youth leader, not a youth volunteer, but unless you've been a youth pastor, I don't think you fully understand how lonely it can be sometimes. Dealing with parent relationships, dealing with HR, missing receipts, all the pressures. Like if you're a youth pastor, you're running a church with unrealistic expectations, and like no to little budget most of the time.
Right.
And yet like you have every person, whether Christian, non-Christian, whatever their theology is, you have their input because you're managing their kids. And you're not their parents, but you're trying to partner with parents and not knowing where those parents are. So it's like, it's a very unique job and a unique role. And you'll get thank the Lord, like here at Bayside, we have pastors who've done it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I've worked under pastors who haven't, and they think they know, but if you haven't done it, you've never done it. And so they get it. Like they get youth ministry. And so that's great. So they understand it. They give us a lot of freedom. My direct boss here, his name's Scott Connor, phenomenal. I have asked this dude some crazy things and he's like, bro, go for it.
Yeah, you have somebody.
Yeah.
You have someone that has your back.
And I know as we do this, I know there's people who don't. And because I've been in that situation, right, where I don't. And then I didn't have community, right? And so then these cohorts, these groups, like we were talking about DYM, because if you're in youth ministry, DYM, I know DYM offers these out, like there's different areas. Jessup, if you're in the Sacramento, Greater Roseville area, get connected to Roans. We'll tag your email and stuff in this, man. But like it's crucial to have a community to where like I need prayer, I need help, I'm going through it. Don't do youth ministry alone, because it's
you can't tell your students like, we're going to go in small groups now because small groups is important. If you believe small groups is important, then you should probably be in one yourself.
Absolutely.
Full of people who understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So if I could answer the question, why is it important?
Yeah.
Why is it important to connect with other churches? And, I think the reason it's important is, well, one, it is important. And here's why, is because the sake of Christian unity is a biblical thing. And, I just think in John 17, when Jesus was praying for the disciples then, and the disciples now, and the disciples for the future, he was praying for unity. And so unity within believers is a Christian and a biblical thing.
Absolutely.
And when it comes to church unity and church relationships, that's an expression of our Christian unity.
100%.
So, we can differ on non-essentials. We can differ on
dogmatic things.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, you sprinkle babies? Cool. There's a deep theological tradition there too. But because we worship the same God and we love the same God, that's what unites us. And Francis Chan wrote a book a couple of years ago called Until Unity.
Yeah.
And his main push is he says, I think the reason why we don't have as much unity as we should be seeing is because we're failing to love.
Absolutely.
When we are filled with the Holy Spirit, we have the spirit of unity.
Mm-hmm.
In the Old Testament, God's people was united by their belief in who they worship.
Yeah.
I can imagine if you're a non-Christian and you look at the church today and you're like, why is there so many different church names out there?
Yeah.
What is a CMA? How did
Country music?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, church relationship is important for, even just a theological standpoint.
100%.
Is we are image bearers of a triune God who is in unity.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to get smart, but I love this word. Early church theologians coined this word perichoresis.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a perichoretic relationship with the Trinity. And what that means is there's this beautiful dance and choreography with the Trinity. And if we are made in the image of God, then there's something about us that I would assume yearns for relationships with like-minded believers.
Absolutely.
So the fact that you can feel alone in ministry is 100% plausible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the destination you're headed to if you do not have friends who are in ministry or relationships with other churches. So, that's from a theological standpoint, I think that's important, is because we reflect the image of God who is unity himself.
Yeah. And on that note, I think it's so good. And I love, let's get theological with it. Like, right, biblically, Jesus sent out the disciples in two.
Yep.
And what you're talking about is he didn't send them out in twos. He sent them out in twos with his spirit, right? Like, this is like the Holy Pentecost had come at this point, right? And he's sending them out. So they're going out in this triune, right? This new relationship, this new, this way of doing life. Yeah. And I love that example because, I think of, my loneliest seasons, it was because the devil, right, comes to steal, kill, and destroy.
Yep.
And one of the things, we should also add on that word. I'm not saying we should actually add on that word, but what does sin do? It isolates, right? It pulls us to darkness. And not saying that you're living in sin if you're alone. No, but that means, I always tell people, and my interns, for example, when you make spiritual headway, you're going to come under spiritual attack. The devil is not going to attack something that's not making a difference. But when you start, if you're doing youth ministry, prepare for battle. Yeah, get ready for war. And that's why you can't do it alone. You can't be so naive that you somehow can go into battle by yourself and think that you by yourself are going to make this huge spiritual wave. No, number one, you need God. You can't be doing this by yourself. You got to have God. And number two, man, bring a brother or sister in Christ with you to make that. I think back to there's been so many times where I've almost been fired. You know what I mean? When you're a youth pastor, you're doing dumb stuff. And I've done some dumb stuff before. And I remember I got this boy named Rocky. Okay. Rocky Burris. Shout out Rocky Burris, neighborhood church, Brentwood. He's still there. Dog. He still texts me. How can I be praying for you? Praying for you today, brother. Hey, I felt it in my spirit, praying for you right now. And it's those type of relationships. I remember I was going through it. We could talk about this later, some other situation, but I was just man, am I done with ministry? And Rocky's no, bro. Mm-hmm. He's you're making a spiritual impact. That's why you're coming under spiritual attack. And I think understanding that and why it's important makes a huge difference. You know what I mean? And I think that really is when we can start to unite, man, when you can see, when students see, for example, we have a lot of this at Bayside. We had a student last night hop from one campus to another campus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I sent Karston a photo. I was oh, look who she chose. And so but it's one of those things where it's no. She comes here and I'm hey, if you can have a bigger impact in Auburn, you should be in Auburn. Yeah. You know what I mean? But when they see us unite, as youth pastor, I can't tell you my last city in Brentwood, like there was quite a few of us that had a great connection. And when a kid would make a jump, because we were so connected, we kind of knew those kids from what churches, we could be like, hey, bro, like, how are things going over at this church? Or how they, like, you know, and then be able to advocate for them. Oh, they're great. Like, when people would leave my church, I remember when I was early in ministry, I used to get offended. Like, oh, they left. We're going to this church. Like, they go to, like, when I was in Reading, they go to Bethel now, you know? And then it was like, I remember being like upset and as if I've like somehow lost. And it's like, if the kingdom's winning, who cares?
That's right. Like, there's the natural temptation as just human beings is that we tend to build our own kingdoms.
Absolutely.
And it's easy to like lose sight of God's kingdom. And so I think that's like what's really important about, you know, talking to other pastors.
Yeah.
And like what you said, you know, when a student, here's the reality, guys. If you're a youth pastor in a relatively large town, a good number of students are probably going to other youth ministries. So you might as well know the other youth pastor if you really care for the student. Because again, the same spirit, if the Spirit of God wants to do something in a city, then wouldn't he like mobilize all of the believers, right? Not just one. So it is important to at least have an understanding of who is out there.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when I was in youth ministry, if someone, one of my students said like, hey, you know, I was over at Bridgeway the other day, you know, I celebrated that.
Absolutely.
Because I'm like, yo, they're great over there.
Yeah.
Or, you know, if the students say like, oh yeah, I was at Bayside's youth group the other day, I was like, what do they do? Like, I love them over there. Like back in the day, I mean, the guy who I connected with here at Bayside when I was working as a youth pastor was Josh Powers.
Oh, great guy.
He's my boss.
New boss.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, Josh, like, how do you do this, man? And you know, because Josh had a different perspective than I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, we're all in this together, and people have different contexts of ministry, and it's selfish for us to think that we know it all.
Absolutely. I think that answers the question, like, why is it important to be a part of a group? And Karston, you're starting out, bro. So like, like for yourself learning, like, why do you think it's important for you to be a part of a group?
Well, especially in the beginning, first couple of like months, I was like, okay, let's just do this. Let's do it. And I get stuck in the mindset of, we just got to get to the next week. Just got to get to the next week. And before I even know it, if you're anything like me, you don't even realize that you've isolated yourself.
Yeah.
And that's the scariest thing. And it's hard because it was weird because I have, at Bayside, there's other campuses. Like I have resources. But I ended up isolating myself without even realizing it.
Yeah.
And I would just say, like, if you could be isolating yourself, you don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Take a step back, ask some people, say, people that you trust, people that speak into your life, do you feel like I've isolated myself? Because I think isolation is one of the most, the things that, I don't know how to word it. I think isolation is something that the devil can use a lot. You're talking about discouragement, something the devil can use a lot. And those two things, when they work together, can really, really tear you down. Like, I was a couple months in, I'm like, guess I'm done with ministry. Like, I texted Jared one night, I'm like, how do you do middle school, bro? This is killing me. But it just happens.
Yeah.
So
there's a great book, man. I gotta jump in because there's a great book. Like, and we didn't resource as much as we probably should, but man, there's a great book. It's called Leadership and Self-Deception. Okay. Charles Spurgeon.
Yeah.
Our campus pastor at Adventure, Metcalf, gave me this book. Okay. And, I remember reading it and there was a whole other story about that, but this book is about like you unintentionally isolate yourself without realizing it. Like, you can get so caught up in the box, like, I'm doing my job, I'm grinding, I'm working, I'm doing this. But the church is, but even within your own church building, like your own staff, you can be isolating yourself. You can become so siloed, and you think you're doing a great job, but you're ticking everyone else off.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because you're just working, but in reality is you're not being a good team player.
Oh yeah.
And the truth is, like, if you're a youth pastor, you're not only a part of your church's team, but you are a part of the kingdom of God's team.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I think if you're isolating yourself, or if you just take an honest inventory of yourself, if you feel like you don't have a lot of relationships with other pastors, or you feel isolated, I think two heart sets lead to isolation. And I think, there could be some element where the enemy is pushing you towards isolation. I think that's what the enemy wants.
Definitely.
So I think what happens when I'm no psychologist, but here's just my observation. When you isolate, there's two things that will drive you to that place. Either it's going to be depression, where you feel so down,
Yeah.
where you're just like, I just want to go alone and I just want to be by myself and process my own dark emotions, or it's pride,
Yes.
where the moment where you start feeling like I've got this figured out, like I think I'm okay, I don't need you. Now, you might not say that, but you'll definitely act like it. And that's when you will isolate yourself. And I think the enemy uses that for division.
Yep. Pride is, J. Cole has a song, Pride is the Devil. Literally anybody, secular world and the church world, pride is the devil.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Pride is the root of I wrote it down because I had a question about like, that's something that I noticed for me is I was isolating myself. And I even told myself, no, I'll just do it on my own. I can do this.
I'm strong enough.
I'm strong.
It's giving me the strength.
Exactly.
Right.
I didn't realize it was a pride thing. And I was like, maybe I can't trust other people, just like haven't talked to me. I don't know them well enough yet, whatever it is. I realized it was such a big pride thing. What other areas of relationships does pride take place, especially in youth pastors and in the church?
Other areas that pride takes place.
Well, yeah. Where have you seen it maybe in your life and or with people that you've helped out with or talked with? Like, how have you seen pride take a toll on a ministry or somebody's life?
Oh, dude. Yeah. Well, I think when you get prideful about something, I mean, pride feels good.
Yeah.
You start feeling like, hey, I'm not that bad. Like, I'm doing pretty good. To some degree, like that's an okay emotion to feel, but you got to definitely put that in check.
Absolutely.
After you preach a sermon, you felt like you knocked it out of the park, and people come up to you and you're like, man, you're awesome like that. God used you. And I mean, you just said you're speaking straight to me, and you feel good that like, man, I am God's servant. That's right. I am.
I'm a vessel.
And I think when you start feeling like that, that pride can become your identity. And when you bring that to your marriage, and you bring that to your relationships, and you kind of maybe cover up some insecurities of your past that are undealt with, that in turn will make you a terrible leader in the future. Too many pastors that I have a fear that there's a lot of youth ministers right now who are serving under youth pastors who have had such great success when their senior pastors were either in youth ministry or were in ministry of some sort, that they kind of project that onto their employee, and that there's that expectation on younger ministers where it's like, well, I got to be like my boss, And so, Josh, if you're hearing this, look out for your boy, man.
Well, on that note too, like especially when looking at pride, I've seen this a lot too. Because so I remember the church I was trying to plant was in Santa Rosa. I was helping out. I was just a youth pastor, and I remember I had invited a buddy from a little bit bigger of a church. They're not very big in Santa Rosa, and so we were going to this thing, and we get there, and there's a couple odd dudes, right? You have a small Nazarene church that has 12 kids, and he's an odd guy, and he's just like, man, you got 20 kids at your group. Like, I can't get 2 to come. And this and he's like, he like sells tires, and you know what I mean? And I remember my buddy being like, he didn't say this, but he's like, I'm too good for this, And he's not in youth ministry anymore. But it's like, the truth is, I think sometimes we can do that. We're like, we'll go to these things, and not everyone's my cup of tea at like the Jessup one. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But it's like, but at the end of the day, man, I know for myself and my elderly state, I can be a resource or a connection point, or I can plug them in, like your boss, Jim, right? Jim's your boss?
Jim is my boss.
Jim Jessup, the legend.
Jim Jessup.
But he is the connector of connectors, dude.
Oh, yeah.
The dude's mustache, legendary. The dude's like ability to connect you with different churches is phenomenal. Oh, hey, Jared, like this people, they were looking for this. Do you know someone? Or hey, this like Doug will text me, or my buddy Blarg, who works with Doug.
Yeah.
He'll be like, hey, do you know a youth pastor? Like it's about helping people out and resourcing people. And so it's like, we can never get too prideful for
Yeah.
for the like to make the kingdom of God better.
Mm-hmm.
Like ultimately, that's what it is. You know.
Yeah. And, in youth network meetings, like, it's good that you don't look like others in that meeting. And
Absolutely.
there's definitely folks in there that you're going to feel like, oh, they are different
Yeah.
than I am.
Yeah.
And
Dwight Schrute.
Yeah, exactly. Like, invite the whole cast of The Office.
Yeah.
And that's basically what a youth network should look like.
Yeah.
You're going to have the kid in there or the pastor in there who, might be a little bit arrogant. You're like, why are you here? But he's on his journey too. And there's going to be the Dwights.
Yeah.
Where you're just
The
like
Angelas. I mean, you get all kinds.
It was the Kevin. That I was the Kevin earlier. Yeah, sorry.
But even too, man, like a great point of that. Like, so my good buddy Rocky at our last town, like, so he's half black. Okay, like and I remember when we went through 2020. I'm a white dude.
Mhm.
Okay, I've adopted. I got some kids that are black and Hispanic, and I'm just like, I need someone who's black to help me through this, bro. Help me to understand perspective. Help me to understand this, and it helped me out with that, man.
Right.
I remember I was in Reading, and there's this oh my gosh. This dude, the white family, there's a church called Little Country, was killing it, young adults. There's this not well-known guy named Jeremy Ritter who's like at Bethel, like running there, like young adults. He hasn't only wrote some big name songs, but they do this like help youth pastors out. And I'm like trying to help our youth, our young adults get going. They invited me and helped me out. There's just like, there's abilities where you can be the help or you can get helped. But it really starts when you have that big C church relationship connection point. And you can you can come be like, hey, I need help. And sometimes you're there and you can be that help too. Like, hey, here's what we have going on. Hey, let's connect for coffee later. Hey, let's work with this parachurch organization like FCA or Young Life to help get them resourced or get on a campus. Or there's so many avenues that church relationships can really help the kingdom of God.
Yeah, and that's really at the backbone of church relationships and church unity is the vision of God's kingdom.
Yeah.
Being advanced.
Absolutely.
Not our own little kingdoms of, First Christian Church or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So
I have unless you have more, I have one last question. About
all we got time for.
Yeah, well, the city that I moved up to, I've had a couple of conversations with youth pastors up there talking about that there's been conflict, right?
Mm-hmm.
This idea that I heard my youth pastor say when I was younger, he's like, we have to figure out how, if we can't see eye to eye, how can we stand shoulder to shoulder?
Mm-hmm.
And what I've been trying to figure out is Joseph Gutierrez, LCBC Church now, Pennsylvania, let's go. How do you bridge the gap? What do you do with, I guess I'm looking for the word is conflict resolution. How do you approach that? Is that my job with the other student pastors to help them out, or do I take a step back?
Mm-hmm.
Because, unity is unity. We need it.
Right. Well, as far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all.
It's almost like it's biblical.
Yeah, almost. It might be, actually. Yeah, do what only you can do. I think that's an Andy Stanley quote with leadership. But also, when it comes to relationships, do what you can do. Own what's yours. Own your own emotions. If you believe in your heart that God is calling you to reconcile or to promote unity within your city of youth pastors, then you go for it. But also having an understanding of you never know where people are at.
Yeah.
They might shut you down.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I think we see in Acts where there have been some splits in ministry journeys with some folks. And you know what? That's okay. There was people preaching the gospel in spite or to spite Paul.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They were in opposition of him. And what did Paul say? He goes, well, if they're preaching the gospel, let them do it. Like, Absolutely. Go for it, you know? We'll see each other in heaven someday and we'll get all the answers. So on this side of heaven, I think do what only you can do. And if you personally find a friend or two, if you find that partner in ministry where, you guys could have maybe the same cultural context or church size, maybe, that's a win.
Absolutely.
That's a huge win.
And two, man, I would say, Karston, with that, like I've been in that situation where I actually came alongside of a church plant that was more of a church split. And my closest friend was the youth pastor at the split from, you know what I mean? And so it was like our churches would not allow us to do things together because of people above us. But that didn't change the love we had for each other. That's good. And so like even like and I've seen that in other contexts too, where it's like my buddy Rock and I, we had another church in our town, similar size, actually same street, and their senior leadership didn't want them participating in this because of theological differences. And I respected that, but it didn't change the love I had and how I spoke of that person. So how do we be the reconciliation of like, it's an example of how we live, how we walk, how we talk, how we speak of that person, you know, even when we may never get back to them. It's taking those steps. And I think like, and do like what Ron's saying, do what you can do in your best and pray for them and pray with them. You know what I mean? And it's like, we are Big C church oriented. And not everyone's gonna like Bayside Church. We get so much heat from people,
right?
And it's crazy to me because I'm like, if you only knew,
I know,
you know what I mean? If you only knew, like the love, like, and Ray is goated. Like if anyone speaks negatively of Ray, it eats me upside because this dude just loves people, like, and loves them so well. And people bash the guy, and he just goes to bat for them. You know what I mean? And so it's like, the Big C church, the more we can become unified, we can't control other people. But as Kevin Thompson says, we can control what's in our lane, right? Yeah. We stay in our lane. And that's what if we can do that, it's great. And so one thing we want to say is don't do youth ministry alone, you guys. And so Rones, if they're in the greater Sacramento area, how can they connect to you, man? How can they get a hold of you or get a hold of what you guys are doing over at Jessup?
Yeah, well, if you're in the area, I would love to meet with you. I have a
large budget.
I have a campus card.
Oh yeah,
I have a campus card.
Jessup's food is fire.
Yeah, come meet with me.
Dude, have you eaten
here with me? Oh,
don't you come meet with Rhodes? Let's go.
Yeah. It's anybody and everybody. I will meet with you, and just ask you how ministry is going. That's my. The bulk of my conversations. I just want to be in your corner.
So do you have an email?
Yeah, let me give you my email. It's going to be R and my last name, Belangi. So R.
Jeez, what an easy
BALANGUE @jessup.edu. Shoot me a email. Let me know what's up. And if you want to grab something to eat, or if you want to join our monthly meetings, I would love to have you. Even if you're a parachurch youth worker, churches need you. So I want to make those connections as well.
Absolutely. And we'll throw that in like the notes and stuff, your email, and get you connected. Yeah. I strongly believe the reason Jessup University is growing is largely based off their cafeteria. Like I don't
food brings people together, baby.
Like when someone was like, hey, they do it at Jessup, I'm like, I'm in. Like every Thursday once a month, probably the highlight of my Thursday. When I don't need it, I cry. And also here we got a Connect thing too that we partner with Rones and stuff. Yeah. And you could just text YP Connect to 56316. That's YP Connect to 56316 to get you looped into what we're doing here at Bayside.
Yeah.
We all see it. Yeah, Rowan comes. We ate to Jack's last week. It was great. And so we want to connect. And honestly, if you're a church in a different area and you're like, hey, I listened to this, I don't know how to get connected, man, just shoot us an email, like get a hold of us, wherever it may be, and we'll get you connected. We know places, people, things, churches. DYM on their website, they have a whole thing about getting people connected. You can't do youth ministry alone, because that's what we believe here. Yeah. We believe that when one of us gets better, we all get better. Yes, sir. And that's what we're pushing here at Bayside Youth Podcast. I don't know, we got a great name.
We'll get there.
We'll get there, man. Youth World, we'll get merch and stuff.
World.
Leadership Leaning just came out with
International.
Youth World International. I mean, with pastors like Mark and Andrew McCourt, like we're worldwide now.
Exactly.
True. Yeah.
Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us, Rones. Thanks for being here with us, man. We love you. We love you guys. Have a great day.
Peace.
We're out.